Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our webinar for adoptive families. Tonight we have a very special guest with us, and we will bring her on pretty soon here. My name is Kim King. I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators, and I am co-hosting along with Libby Denniston, one of our other coordinators here at Lifetime. And we're excited to bring this program to you this evening, answer some questions that may be on your mind, and hope that this will, touch you where you are in your journey, and maybe even, find something in common with what you're feeling right now and what our guest shares. But I'll let Libby get into that a little bit more here. First, a few housekeeping things. If you have never reached out to Lifetime, the very first thing to do is fill out our application on our website. That's at LifetimeAdoption.com/apply. You can easily fill out the application within about 15 minutes. We've really streamlined it, and hopefully from there we can move forward and have a phone conversation to talk more with you about adopting a baby and what all that could look like and everything, and answer your questions along the way. If you do have preliminary questions, you're welcome to call. We have an open door policy. You don't have to have filled out the application in order to request some information. You can call 1-800-923-6784. Or you can fill out our inquiry form online and share a little about yourself and just start there. Or email any questions to apply@lifetimeadoption.com or myself, Kim, at lifetimeadoption.com, if you have anything specific that's more related to your journey and just more related to learning more facts about Lifetime for you specifically. If you have those kinds of questions, I welcome you to reach out to us or to myself, and I can answer those for you. The application is a great start because then I can look at that as we're talking and have a kind of baseline for kind of where you are and what your family structure is, a little of what you're looking for in your adoption, and tailor fit the information, resources, and answers to you specifically. You can also join us on Facebook. That is a great place to follow along and be a part of the conversation with Lifetime. Usually what I just do is look for Lifetime Adoption Center in the search bar on Facebook, but you can go there directly, facebook.com/open.adoption. And of course, we're on Instagram. We have quite an online presence through multiple websites and social media, and we keep everything up to date on a regular basis so that there's always something there for you. But we appreciate you being with us tonight. And Libby, thank you for getting everything set up and getting everything organized with our lovely guest.
Thank you so much, Kim. So funny things about webinars, we can do practice runs and we can do sound checks before we get started, but we never quite know how things are going to go until they're live. So that's a little bit of a fun aspect, just knowing that we're not too polished over here. We really are, everything we say we are, we're interested in you individually, but also bringing to you authentic stories that show you the hope and the encouragement that you can find in learning from other people who have walked where you are today. And so I hope tonight's webinar will be helpful and inspiring and just touch some of your hearts tonight wherever you're at in this journey. Today actually kicks off National Adoption Awareness Month. Every November is recognized around here as Adoption Month, and there are so many different opportunities, to talk about what adoption means to you. And if you go to Lifetime's page, we would love if you chime in on that conversation too. But also sometimes what that gives you is the opportunity to help others learn what you're knowing adoption as, because every adoption is as unique as the people involved, and certainly there are different types of adoption. And so Adoption Awareness Month is not just about lifetime adoptions specifically. It's really about what adoption looks like for you. And so you may want to go to our social media or find some way to take advantage of National Adoption Awareness Month and just help others to just better understand how it's blessed your life or what you wish others would know. But I thought, what better way to kick off Adoption Month than to have one of our new adoptive moms come on and share her story. And so all year, actually, I feel like it's been all year, but it's really only been since March. But we have been so excited and hoping that Megan would come on and share her story because, again, like I said, every adoption is unique, but what was so fun about Megan and her husband Brandon's story is just that it was, some people call them stork drops. We don't really call them that around here. Sometimes we refer to them as last-minute adoptions, or maybe when a baby falls in your lap or drops in your lap. But anyway, it comes down to it. Sometimes adoptions happen faster than you think. And Megan certainly has a testimony to that tonight. Most people, when they come to adoption, they sort of gear up for the waiting, and may even sort of dread that a little, or wonder how they're going to get through the waiting to be chosen by a birth mother, the waiting for the opportunity to adopt a baby. That I have actually helped couples before who thought, oh, it's going to take a long time. We're prepared for that. And then when they get called, they're actually surprised that it's happening. So the key that comes out of the story tonight, too, one of the aspects, there's so many elements to their story, but just to remember to be ready and to take control of what you can, and then trust the process. I think that we'll really get that out of Megan's story tonight. But I know I just want to say on her behalf, because we spoke at length last week in preparing for tonight's webinar, and I know that it is on Megan's heart to make sure that she never takes for granted that there are other families who may not identify with how fast her adoption came together. But what we know at Lifetime is that all of you who become a Lifetime family have a story that's usually years or at least several months of trying to build your family, trying to become a parent, trying to add a child to your life, whether that's through infertility, or you tried adoption before, or you went the foster care route, or you tried surrogacy, or any number of ways that people are building their families. We know that by the time people reach Lifetime, they have already been on a journey. So sometimes when we hear stories like you'll hear tonight of, well, we got started with Lifetime in January, and by March we had our baby, there's a lot of people who might think, well, isn't that nice? That went so fast for you. But in reality, every single adoption story comes with a weight. It's just Lifetime is just a part of that. So be encouraged as you hear this tonight, knowing that Brandon and Megan walked through their own journey just to get to the child that was meant for them, and that really what we see out of tonight's story is a huge example of what we see with every Lifetime adoption, which is what Marty likes to say: there's truly a baby for every family who is actively pursuing adoption, who truly wants to adopt. And what I love about adoption stories is how we always get to hear that meant to be factor come out of them. So with that, let's get started and get to know Megan. Megan, thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that introduction. That was very timely.
Well, I know how important it is to you, especially because you have a unique connection to Lifetime, because you actually have friends that not only recommended Lifetime for you, but that you know some friends who are currently waiting. And
yes,
that is one of the most fun things for us, is when we see not only how adoption connects families and babies and birth mothers, but also how when you start to share your adoption journey, you start to connect with others who are also pursuing adoption and building their family through adoption. And sometimes those families come to Lifetime and sort of have a little friend group just even before they knew each other through Lifetime. So it's neat that you have that connection, but I also know that when you're walking through that, that you also very much understand that everyone's journey is different, and that your story is its own, but that you have such a heart for people just waiting to get to that milestone of welcoming their baby home. So I can really just appreciate that you come from that place.
Thank you. It's really been such a blessing.
And so one of the things that stood out when I was catching up with you last week was when you said, oh my goodness, when I think about where we were a year ago. So can we kind of start about what brought you to adoption and what brought you to Lifetime? What did you mean when you said, when I think back to 12 months ago or within the last year?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with endometriosis at a very young age, so I kind of always knew that I would have, the doctor said, a 50-50 chance of becoming pregnant later on in life. So when Brandon and I started dating, we had conversations about adoption early on. It was always on my heart. Um, about after a year and a half of trying a few surgeries on my end, we realized that we may not be able to get pregnant. So we actually did move forward with having Brandon tested, and it turned out that it wasn't just me or him, but it was actually both of us that had medical issues. So we kind of had to laugh to keep from crying at that point. I don't know if any of you are Friends fans, but we used to joke about we were like Monica and Chandler, and we would say his guys wouldn't get off the Barca Lounger, and the ones that did, they met in a hospitable environment, and it was kind of just our way to find humor in the situation. But through our infertility journey, we continued to discuss adoption, and we did know Sarah and Colby, and they had just adopted through Lifetime. So it turned out to be such a blessing that we were able to research Lifetime, and we just sent in our application and talked to Kim last August, and we really felt called to Lifetime, and we felt really comfortable with the concept of open adoption.
Mm-hmm. So that's, I would say, the number one reason why I love having other adoptive parents come on and share their experience, because so often people can feel very alone. Like, wow, we were just told that we're probably not going to have a child biologically, so where do we go from here? And when you don't know anyone else who's walked that path, it can feel very isolating or scary. But you have this huge blessing of watching someone else go through that. And so, hopefully tonight's story, and you can even go to adoptionwebinar.com and hear other stories if you're listening tonight, because hearing other real life people go through it makes it more approachable, because there are so many stereotypes and just odd information out there about adoption. Sometimes it's very outdated, so it may have been true 40 years ago, but not for today. So, where were you, since you already kind of had a peek into what a modern day domestic adoption could look like because of your friends, were there still any hurdles that you had to kind of overcome? Like, well, would we want an open adoption? How did you decide even what type of adoption to choose?
Yeah, I think in the beginning you have your questions. I was uneducated. That's what I say to others that ask me that same question. I mean, yesterday I had somebody that's just like, open adoption, like what? I just can't imagine doing that. And I just think when you learn about it and how beneficial it is for not only the parents, but your child, it's really beautiful. And we have such a good relationship with our birth mother that I cannot imagine having a different type of adoption for us. It just worked out very naturally.
Mm-hmm. I love that too. I think that's a common fear. Most people can't imagine, well, what would that be like? Would she be telling me when to vaccinate my baby, or, what kind of shoes I need to buy her, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then when you realize, no, it's just about relationship. It's not a co-parenting thing. So a year ago, you mentioned that you actually, like, it was August last year that you actually were like, let's look at Lifetime. So you came on and started getting some things together, right? But you weren't yet fully active.
We made the decision in August that we for sure wanted to do this. We went through the 6-month payment plan where you could do one payment and then your second one. So August to December was a very busy time for us. We did our home study process. We were creating our profile and working on our video. I went ahead and set up a nursery. I just felt like that was something I really had in me that I needed to do. And we did some fundraising. And then around the holidays, right before we did go live, the doctors had recommended that I went ahead and had a hysterectomy since we had made an official decision to adopt. Mm-hmm. And so, sorry, I'm going to not get emotional about this. It was very difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Even, I compare it to even when we know that, say, a beloved relative is going to pass on, maybe they're even on hospice care, it's still, once that final end comes, it's a new level of that loss. So even though you had come to terms with, okay, so we're going to have to build our family another way, I could totally imagine that a hysterectomy would be like
Yes, very
You're
shocking.
locking the
I'm
door.
30
It's not
years
even
old,
you're
so
closing the door.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was difficult. We were living out of state at the time, so I was talking to Libby last week about how hard it is to not have. We couldn't travel to see my family, and it was just such a different mindset last year. And I was trying to stay so positive, but to come from that, and now this year we have this beautiful little girl. It's just we just feel so lucky.
hmm So even though, because I think a lot of people would really recognize in themselves these feelings, even though you were already on the path to adoption, that you still had that grief with the fertility journey. I mean, I think this time of year too sometimes brings that back up. Um, I don't know about all of you, but I feel like my news feed goes in waves, and lately I have been seeing several pregnancy announcements on Facebook and Instagram. And so sometimes that, even though you are like, we're going to adopt and you're excited, there still can be those raw scars that get bumped. What would you say to maybe another hopeful adoptive mom who's listening right now who's thinking, yeah, we're fully invested in our future in adoption, but lately I feel so just sad that, we can't conceive biologically and have that option.
Yeah. I would say rely on your faith. I mean, prayer is very powerful, and your spouse. I could not have asked for a better husband, and we really had each other's back, and we went through this together. And it was just, if he had a bad day or I had a bad day, we have to keep going and stay positive. And I'm pretty realistic in that I can only do what I can do. And so I just had to focus on those things that I could control and try to keep that positive outlook and keep praying.
hmm Thank you for talking about that. I know that, everyone comes to adoption and they have their own story, but I think a lot of times what I like to say is birth mothers and adoptive parents um, typically, like what we see here, is they're coming together from paths they never imagined walking, and then they meet each other in the middle for this child, and it's just such a huge reflection of God's redemption, of how he can take things and make things good out of things that were hurting or things that were lost. And I really appreciate that you could speak to that, Megan. So kind of thanks for going there tonight with us so
Yes,
that we could
thank you. Sorry, I got emotional.
know where you're coming from. No, don't apologize. I think that, this time of year too, it's just the holidays are coming, the weather and the days are kind of slowing us down a little bit, and it's really a time of year when people start to feel like it's even more obvious that they don't yet have the child that they've been praying for. And so I think when we can talk about those real emotions, that's when people actually find the healing and find the help, rather than feeling like they're just oddballs and they have to just pull up their bootstraps and keep going, but rather, like you said, lean in on your faith, talk to your spouse about that. Have a small circle of people you can trust to listen and be there for you.
Yes.
All really wise. So you get through December with major surgery and holidays and being away from your loved ones, and you decide to become active in January. Is that right?
Well, I had to wait. So in our home study process, you have the physical aspect, and so my home study agent needed the clearance after my surgery to actually approve us. So it was kind of like I'm waiting to heal, and then we could go live. So we went live, I believe it was January 12th. It was like the day after I got my clearance. So we've been so ready, but I was just waiting.
Well, and that's something I remember you saying to me before that I'm trying to look back on my notes here because you were saying a lot of gems, but talking about focusing on what you could do and making the most of things. What does that concept mean to you? Because like you just said, I mean, I pretty much went live as soon as they said go.
Yes. So before I went live, we were fully prepared. My idea was we're going to be live, and day one they can send out our profile. And I felt like those 4 months that we were in that wait period, it was just, let's get our profile up to date, and I want it to really reflect who we are and be genuine. There's just so many great couples on Lifetime, and you look through, and it's hard not to get a little bit intimidated. So it was just kind of like the more I looked, the more I just felt like I really need to stop looking at these, and I just need to do what I can do. So we had our professional pictures taken, and we started working on our video and our nursery. I remember putting together a gender-neutral nursery, just small things that we could kind of control.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide to put together a nursery? That is a common question I think we hear at every webinar, because so many people wonder, is that going to be too hard? But you actually found a lot of joy doing that, right?
Yes, I don't know why. It calmed me and comforted me. I had a lot of friends who thought I was absolutely crazy, and they were just like, I cannot imagine going into this nursery every day and you are waiting for a child. But I really just felt a sense of peace, and I knew that that nursery was meant for our baby and it would happen, and I loved going in that nursery.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's really going to be a personal decision, but I think your perspective and your outlook can really change how you, how you decide. If you know yourself well, like Marty, Lifetime's founder, she did not set up a nursery. She just knew herself enough to say that is just going to make me think too much. I need to wait until my baby's here. But there are some people who might really identify with what Megan just said, which is, I can control the nursery. Let me take advantage of that.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely just that personal decision and what you feel comfortable with, and besides that.
And Libby, if I can just add, we have a couple of great comments from listeners. Beth said putting together the nursery was a huge positive to us, and we've definitely noticed that it can lead to sadness as time goes on. And then Tasha said, I think the nursery makes you feel prepared. It helped with my anxiety about maybe getting a quick placement, so she could totally relate. And then Samantha chimed in, we love putting ours together. And there was also a quick question here from Tasha. She said, did you mention infertility in your profile? So she was curious about that.
Yes, we did. I did not go into any great detail, but we did mention infertility and that this would be our first child.
So just kind of given a reason why you were called to adoption, so that she has a little bit of backstory.
Yes, a little bit of backstory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those are things too, because Lifetime has a whole team that just helps families create their profiles. So there are some families I've worked with that even though they don't have a child in the home, sometimes they don't want to say this will be our first child because maybe they miscarried, or maybe they had a child pass away right after birth, or some reason why they already feel like they were parents. So there are different things, just for all of you listening. If you have a unique aspect of your story, that we can help you word it so that there's a little bit of that backstory and that reason, because birth mothers ask that, why are they adopting? But also you don't want to dwell there. And those are things that we help families to draw out, but also to emphasize where they are today. But I'm glad that you could share that, Megan. That was awesome. Thanks. So you're waiting. Now, did you, knowing that you took control of everything that you could, were you one of those people, like I was talking about earlier, that sort of dreaded the wait? Were you just sort of saddling up for, okay, this could take a while?
Yes and no. I tried not to focus too much on it. I know that it's not, we had Brandon's birthdays in February. We went to Disney World. It was kind of like, let's just stay as busy as we can. I was in school for my master's. It was just a very busy time for us. So it was kind of like, let's be prepared, but let's not try to focus on this wait, because we know that it can be a few years.
Mm-hmm. So then, now I just want to talk about, so your adoption technically wasn't really last minute, because you had a heads up about the possibility.
Yeah,
it's just everything came down so much faster than you expected, and that sometimes that happens. We can't control when babies come. That's why we have 24-hour hotline. That's why we tell you to be ready, because you know, babies come early, babies come late, babies come even a day early. It doesn't mean anything's premature. So let's just talk about how your adoption story started. So you were
Yeah.
waiting a couple months, and then do you know why your daughter's birth mother chose you?
Um, she said that the second she saw our picture, she related to us and just felt that immediate connection. She did mention that she liked that we had dogs, and the biggest thing was my husband. She was very much looking for a man that if she could envision her daughter like running up to like a father figure, and that the second we got to the hospital, she put Ariana straight into Brandon's arms. Like it was just like, I want to see their connection, their interaction. So that's just so special to me. I mean, because I know he's such a good person and a great man, but it was just so nice that another woman had noticed that, and she just felt like he would just be such a good dad just from his smile and the things that people had written about him in our profile.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just love that you shared that. I don't think that I had heard that before, but I do think that that is part of the package deal. And so for those of you men listening, you might feel like, gosh, adoption feels like it is a woman's world. It's all about birth mothers and adoptive moms, and I'm just along for the ride. But you are watched. You are noticed.
Definitely.
And what an amazing part of your little girl's story that the first one to hold her was him.
Yes, it was
So
very sweet.
Is she still a daddy's girl?
It wasn't technically the first one, but yes, she's still a daddy's girl. He showed up a little bit later, so I'll talk about that. But he was as soon as he got there, she was like, here.
True, that's true. I did forget that part because I remember he had to catch up to you.
Yes, I had to sorry, and he drove. Yes.
So, so you find out about her. Lifetime called you and said, "Hey, so let's go
Friday afternoon." Okay. And I was working, and I drove out of town for my job at the time, and I was about an hour away from home, and you're just shocked in that moment, and you don't really know what to do. And I was thinking, Chrissy called, and she's talking about a birth mom, and you're just a little bit overwhelmed, and I'm like, where am I going to pull off so that I have such a good story for my daughter? Like, this is a huge moment. I'm about to speak to a birth mother, and you don't know if you're going to be matched, but on the off chance that I really wanted to have somewhere special to us. So I remember pulling in the zoo parking lot and sitting there, and she said, this birth mom has to be to work in 20 minutes, so you've got about 10 minutes to talk to her on the phone, and I want to get this match done because she's due next weekend. And we were just like, okay. So I'm very type A, and I was like, I don't have my list of questions. And Chrissy's like, it'll be fine. And I was like, okay. So we talked to our birth mother, and Chrissy called us back in about 10 minutes and said that she liked you guys and you're matched. And that was on Friday. I had a feeling that it was not going to be a week. I don't know, something, I knew. So I packed a bag on Saturday, and I hardly slept a wink. And then at 3 a.m. we got the text from Maria saying I'm at the hospital, and that was kind of when our journey really began. I got to contact Lifetime in the middle of the night and book my flight and head to North Carolina.
Whew. So that's another thing. Well, and even that you were willing to drop everything and talk to her when she was ready, there are a lot of people who have struggles with that idea of, I don't even get to prepare for my first conversation with her. I just have to pull over in a parking lot and just talk. That would scare a lot of people. I mean, what was that first conversation like with her?
She's younger. You have the shyness, and that's natural, but she's just so sweet, and honestly, you just have, it was like meant to be. It was a good connection right off the bat, and it was very easy to talk to her, and we just felt that immediately.
Mm-hmm. And that's something too, we always tell people on both sides, birth mothers and adoptive families, both of you are going to be nervous, so it's okay to even just say, I'm a little nervous, what do you want to talk about? And it just unfolds. But like you said, it is so common for us to hear after the phone call, wow, that was easier and more comfortable than I thought it would be. It really felt meant to be. That that aspect. And I think that comes because she gets the freedom to choose you rather than being convinced that, this next family on the list is the one for you. But she already knew a lot about you because she got to read about your life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you said that she had been mailed profiles, and she didn't feel that connection, and so we had actually just sent an email to her because it was so last minute. I think she was probably a little bit overwhelmed, but I was very thankful that she felt that connection with us right away.
Mm-hmm. So now a unique aspect in your story too is that she was hiding her pregnancy, right?
Yes, family was unaware.
So did that concern you at all? Because I have worked with families before who almost insist that unless they know that a birth mother has the support of her family, they don't want to move forward on the match. So, how did you process that truth of hers?
It is concerning, and I can understand that aspect, but she was open to the openness, and so we had already started a relationship, and in the hospital we had a very good connection, and my lawyer was actually pregnant, and her husband was a social worker, and so I remember being pretty adamant that not only does the hospital social worker come and talk to her, but if she could get another social worker just for counseling and making sure that she had that support. And so she had her husband come in and talk to her also, and that made me feel a little bit better. I just felt your heart goes out to these women that are doing this alone. I mean, I cannot imagine. And she was so strong and positive the whole time. I think her personality probably helped us feel more at ease than anything. She never wavered. She never acted I mean, she was so positive in herself that it really made us feel comfortable, and hopefully vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything you just mentioned, there's so many different ways that these women can get the support they need, and sometimes there's just reasons why they don't want to share their pregnancy with their loved ones. But it's never a reason to criticize her or pry, but at the same time to kind of find out, okay, but I know that it must be hard to go through this alone, so where are you getting that extra support? It's the bigger picture thing. But but at the same time, not to underestimate you and Brandon, because now she invited you into her story. So because of open adoption now, in a way, you're there for her too. So she wasn't alone in this. Now, did she, so you talked on a Friday. I love that you dropped everything to just even take Lifetime's call. It's just so important to be ready whenever, and to just be, you just never know, and you don't want to miss out. But at the same time, to just say, okay, well, can you give me a second? I've worked with families before who said, I'm not even I feel like I'm not even hearing this. Can I get a drink of water? So sometimes they have to put the phone down and kind of compose themselves a little,
yes.
like the shock.
Yeah, I was just crying hysterically. She's like, it's fine. It happens all the time. Okay, you could just outwait this. She was
and it's okay. Yeah, it's totally okay. I mean, you just never know how it's going to hit you either. Some people laugh, some people cry, some people. Sometimes we have to actually say, "Are you excited?" And they usually, "Oh, yes, I am excited. I don't even know what to say." They're just so quiet. So. Yeah, you can't totally prepare for how you're going to react when you find out the news has changed with your adoption goal. But so that was Friday night, and then you said was it 3 a.m. that you said you got the call?
It was,
okay.
3 a.m. Saturday night. Yes, just very overwhelming. Just very quick and exciting, and like I said, I just knew Brandon thought I was being a little bit crazy and proactive, packing a bag already, but I like to be prepared, and I'm so glad that I was. And I will say I had texted her Friday. Once you're matched, they'll provide the contact information for your birth mother, and so that was nice. I was able to text her Friday evening and just say, hey, we're here. You just let us know which hospital, and whenever you're in labor, we will be there as soon as we can. And so I think that reaching out to her, she was just so sweet and receptive, and then Saturday, I think it made her feel a little bit more comfortable texting me at 3 a.m. saying, hey, I'm in labor and heading to the hospital. So
yeah, texting has changed open adoption so much. Just, in the old days, people were so protective of their cell phone numbers, but now, I mean, that's really the primary way people communicate. And to be able to text, sometimes a text goes through when you can't get reception to make the actual phone call. So that's great that you exchanged that information, immediately. So now you had to go ahead without Brandon. Am I remembering right?
Yes. So my brother actually lives in North Carolina. So in North Carolina, the birth mother has 7 days to reclaim. So we spent 7 days at my brother's house, and his wife was pregnant. It was an interesting time. I think I'm getting a lot of practice. But we had actually bought a car seat for him and had not given it to him yet. So it really was interesting because I flew and my husband drove with that car seat. That was our gift for my brother. And that ended up being the car seat that we took Ariana from the hospital to his house in.
That
so
is funny.
It was interesting. It was interesting. But I ended up getting there around 10 in the morning, and she had Ariana about an hour before that. So it was kind of nice. She said she had wanted a little bit of alone time after the birth, and that worked out very well. And so when I got there, she just welcomed me right into her room, and we spent the next 24 hours together. The hospital put us in the room next to hers, and Maria had given us the other bracelet. I guess you have to have the bracelet on to be able to be alone with the baby. So she had given that to me right when I arrived, and Brandon showed up around 2 o'clock after driving. So he was there that afternoon on Sunday.
So for us at Lifetime, we never quite know when we're working the after hours hotline. We never know what's going to happen on the other side. And Megan was great because she called, and everything actually went pretty smooth for you. It's just that it kind of started with sometimes the hospital staff, especially on a weekend, they don't always know, well, why are you here? And they're very protective of the mothers and the babies. So they don't want to just be letting anybody in who says, I'm here for an adoption. It can get real creepy. So they're really protective. And so I remember being on call and you calling and having to get me up to speed because we weren't expecting her to deliver. And then saying, the hospital doesn't know what's going on. And then what I loved, Megan, in my memory, what I remember admiring in you was that you were willing to not only be patient and have grace with the hospital staff, but to also be a little bold and just being honest and saying, look, I'm texting with the mother. Like, she's asking when I'm going to come in. Because that's what I remember was that you were more worried about letting Ariana's birth mother down and keeping her waiting than you were anxious to, this is my baby, I need to get in there. That it was you really, I remember you being really good about making it about, I'm here for this birth mother. How did you get yourself in that mindset? Because some people would really struggle with that.
I don't know. I felt that immediately. She's not young enough to be my child, but it was that instinctual, like, this woman is alone and I need to be there. And she is texting me and she was ready for me to come and I couldn't get there. And so just finding, like you said, it was very hard to find the patience in that moment to just sit in the waiting room for 45 minutes. I just remember being like, okay, 45 minutes, I can do this, like however long it takes. She's up there, Ariana's up there, like I'll get there eventually. And thankfully, it's so funny that you were the one on call. It really just adds another layer to the story. It was just so special for us to have you. Just wonderful. You were wonderful, Libby, grounding me and making me feel reassured, and that helped a lot.
Oh my goodness, thank you. This webinar is not even about that, but that just touches my heart. Thank you, Megan. So I saw a question pop up, and I always love this question too. But did you name the baby together with her, or did you already have a name in mind?
Oh, we did not. We had a name in mind, and one of my friends had just used it the week before, so we did not have any names. We went in with a very open mindset. I wanted to carry down my middle name. It's in our family. We've done it for multiple generations, and luckily our birth mother was very open to that, and even to the first name. But we, she's Ariana's Hispanic, and we really kind of wanted to give tribute to her culture. And so we kind of talked about with our birth mother, like, what names do you like? And we decided on Ariana together.
Um, so how much time did you actually spend with her in the hospital after she gave birth?
With Maria, with our birth mother? So we spent quite a bit of time with her. That first day, like I said, they did put us up in the room next to hers. The first night, we decided to do kind of a tag team, and we took shifts. So we switched up every 4 hours. She would have Ariana, and then we would have Ariana. We watched her first bath together and changed her meconium diaper together. She and I grew close very quickly. And even Brandon, I mean, he was like, what can I get you to eat? And we ran and got her dinner and ate dinner with her. She was very open to it, but I also tried to make sure that she had her space. And if she needed time alone with Ariana, I definitely wanted to give her that. She ended up being discharged on Monday, but Ariana had to stay an extra night because she had a heart murmur. So Monday was really all about the birth mother and Ariana and them having that quality time together. I did not even ask to take Ariana. I said, you spend the day and take as much time as you need. She said, I'll bring her over to you at 9 p.m. when I get discharged. And that's kind of how we worked it out. I just kind of played on her emotions and kind of tried to read the situation and what would be best for her.
Yeah, to take cues from her. I love what you just said about how close you grew to each other because you only knew each other for about a day.
Oh, it's crazy. It feels like much
so
longer.
Did that surprise you? Because I think that aspect of it is probably the most under-anticipated part of every adoption story I see at Lifetime, where adoptive parents are usually surprised how much they fall for their child's birth mother. Just they fall in love with her and want good things for her, and that connection, it's such a unique connection. You're not going to have that with anyone else.
No, it really is. It is surprising. Now it doesn't, I mean, you haven't thought about it in so long. In 7 months, it feels very natural. Like I text this woman every month and we have a good relationship. But then if I would have said this time last year, I probably would have been surprised at the relationship that I have with her now. And I'm just so thankful to have it.
And again, I think sometimes that's because it's near impossible to know how you're going to feel about someone that you don't even have a name for yet.
Yes.
And that you get that chance to talk to her on the phone. And for all of you listening, if you've never walked through the type of adoption like Megan's talking about, at Lifetime, you're putting together a little booklet or a website, and the potential birth mothers are learning about you that way. They're learning about your life. But then before you even talk with her, you are getting the information that we have about her. So you kind of start a conversation almost in the middle. It's like a little bit like a blind date, but you know more about each other too. So you get a little bit of wiggle room because you know some of the questions you might want to ask or some of the interests or commonality there. But just like you said before, it just kind of felt meant to be, and it became comfortable. And I think so often we hear on these webinars, the idea of being there for the birth mother. And when you can do that, I think it just deepens that connection instantly, rather than making her feel like she has to fight to be noticed or to be remembered or fight to have a part in this baby's story. And somehow you just sort of instinctively did that, I think, because like you said, you went into it really open-minded, which I could picture as an open heart. You just went in like, we're in this all the way. I mean, what was it like with Brandon and her? Do they have the same kind of connection?
They did. They were cutting up and laughing and joking about. I mean, the first day it was just. I honestly, I don't feel like I will ever have the strength that she had. It's amazing how positive she was, and my husband's a very positive person too, and it was just awesome to see that connection and that relationship build.
Mm. So you mentioned earlier that she put Ariana in his arms because she wanted to see
Yes, right.
what that was going to be like. So did she make any comments like, okay, that's good enough for me? Or like, was there any confirmation after she did that, or any,
Oh, she just grinned from me. She just was smiling, and she was just like, oh, they're so cute together. And so it was just really special moment.
We had a good question come up here since everything was so last minute. So I just want to highlight too, something that was really great about what you and Brandon did was that because you wanted to drive, to have the ability to have your own car and also to stay with your family and bring the car seat, but at the same time you also knew the importance of we need to get there as soon as possible. So you were willing to travel separately. Some people don't do that. And I personally would be like, see you later, honey, I'm out. Like, you can't slow me down, I'm going. But that's a really good tip, is to be willing to travel separately. But I know you packed, but were there things that you had to buy once you got there, or did you have everything already in the car?
Oh, goodness, yes. I had an hour layover in Atlanta, and I was ordering a car seat on Amazon to be delivered to my brother's house. Like, I did not have everything. I mean, I had the basics of the nursery, but Saturday I remember going shopping and being able to buy the first outfit for a girl, because I think that was one of the hardest parts for me was you don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. We had a very open preference sheet, and we were just so excited to be able to say, oh, now we know, and I can go and buy a little dress for this girl. And so we went Saturday and got basics. We bought a few bottles and some white onesies and, just the basic things. But I definitely remember in the airport shopping on Amazon. Yes, last minute.
And these days it's nice for those of you who love to plan ahead. I'm hearing more and more from hopeful adoptive parents that they're taking advantage of different baby registries you can do on Amazon with wish lists, and there are other sites that even have adoption registries, so you don't have to put in a due date. But so if you're a list person and you want to be as prepared as possible, but also don't want to buy a ton of boy clothes and end up adopting a girl, you can know what you're going to get and then take advantage of the time, like Megan just said, where she's sitting in the airport ordering away from her list.
I had a wish list on Amazon, fully prepared. I'm very, very, I like to be ready. I just did not want to have that anxiety of I don't know what I need. I felt like I had already had most of it on my wish list.
So, I mean, you had the blessing, too, of being able to stay with, you said it was your brother. So,
yes.
That, a lot of people don't get that.
Libby, real quick, one thing I will say for those who like to be prepared, I know this is going to sound really silly, but I had wished that I had this ahead of time, is you tend to buy a small gift for your birth mother, and because I only had a day, I had ordered it on Friday. As soon as we were matched, I had gone home and ordered a gift for our birth mom, and it did not show up in time, and that still breaks my heart. I don't know, it still sits with me. And so that was something that I wished that I had done ahead of time. We actually got one of those books that you can record, and my idea was to have the birth mother read the book, and then I would have that for Ariana. So it broke my heart when that book came in, and it was like a week later, and I had not been able to give that to her. So I don't know, that's just something I wish I had known ahead of time.
Yeah, and that's, I would say that's a really common question most people have is, well, can I give a gift to her, and what should that be? Some of you may not get any good ideas until you know her specifically, and it's okay to give that token of love and appreciation and gratitude later too if you need. But sometimes there are so many great ideas these days too. So if you are a researcher and you just love making the lists and everything, you can start an idea board even on Pinterest or something of what you might consider, because when you're in the moment, you may need to go back to that list of ideas and figure out where you left off and what might fit. Megan, I saw a couple good questions come in. One was about baby showers, and wanted to know, I'm guessing you had a baby shower long after you were home, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did, and we actually had it on Cinco de Mayo, and we did taco bar, and it was a fun little fiesta, is what we called it, and we just did like, come meet our little, let's talk about it, and that's what it was, really cute, like sip and see type of thing, and all of our family in Tennessee hosted it, and it was lovely. It was awesome to have that with her, but we also had a few months with her alone before we decided to do that.
Is that something that you would suggest to other families, is to give yourself time to adjust, especially if it goes quickly like this? I've heard some people say before, I loved that baby instantly, but there were times when I looked down at her and thought, how did this little stranger just get into my house? Like, it really is kind of a mindset you have to let soak in.
Yes. I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I mean, that is what worked for us. I will say we had friends at the time we were living in Florida, and we had friends who had decorated our house. And I remember thinking, I'm so glad that they took the time, because a lot of times I think when you are an adoptive mom, it's kind of, you still feel it, but it can get pushed to the wayside sometimes, that maybe it's not the same. And so to have like that, people who took time out of their day to like make it a little bit of a celebration and really like embrace us and Ariana, it really meant a lot to us when we walked in the door to that. So I think having those close friends that realize how important this is to you, that really helps. And then I felt really good about, she was 2 months old at that time, and we felt better about traveling. It's kind of scary to travel too much with a newborn baby, and we're still learning how to be parents. So I liked the waiting 2 months before we did the sip and see.
Well, and there's the bonding aspect too, just giving
Yes.
the baby a chance to get to know you guys before they're passed around a room full of strangers.
Definitely.
And know where her comfort comes from, and her bottles and her diapers. And so also, I know that something that you were kind of excited to talk about too, that is a huge hurdle for a lot of people who want to adopt. It's pretty common for people to say, I would love to adopt, but I'm just worried about how I'm going to cover the costs. Can you talk about how you and Brandon just funded your adoption?
Yeah, well, we had saved, but a few things that we did, Lifetime had recommended looking into your job and seeing if they offer that benefit. And I worked for a corporation, and luckily they did have a $5,000 grant that they did for anyone who had adopted, and so that was very helpful. And another thing I did was a puzzle piece fundraiser where
puzzle pieces.
Yes, I got a double-sided picture frame, and we had our picture printed on the puzzle piece, one of our adoption pictures. It said, I think it says love makes a family. And on the back, we had numbered all the pieces, and people contributed that amount. And I think in the first 2 hours on social media, we had $3,000 raised. And so that was a really positive experience for us. We had so many people, and it just makes you feel so loved and supported. It was just, people wrote the sweetest things. And so what I did was put their names on the back. And so when Ariana's a little bit older, we can look over that puzzle and pray for all of those families that helped bring her to us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it gave me chills. There's so many really unique and fun ideas that get people excited, which is also kind of cool, because it not only helps you raise the money, but also might help you spread the word. So the people that are involved in the fundraiser are also the people that are out there that may end up knowing someone who knows your future child's birth parent. So you never quite know where those community efforts might go either. But I really appreciate you sharing those. So I know we've talked about it before. If any of you heard that and thought, what are employer benefits? What is she talking about? You can write to Kim, and she'll get you more information about what other families have done and what that means. But there are a lot of really great fundraiser ideas. But I do I do agree, Megan. I love the idea of someday turning that over and seeing all the names of the people that helped. How meaningful that'll be to Ariana when she gets there too. Yeah. So
speaking of fundraisers, Shelby suggested she wanted to mention there's a foundation called bothhands.org that helps with fundraisers for adoption. And what you do is you work on a widow's home, and your work is sponsored by family and friends, and it's based off the Bible verse James 1:27 to serve the widows and the orphans. So it all works together for good. And I've heard of that one over the years. So Shelby, thank you for bringing that to us. Maybe that'll help some listeners today.
I've actually met the gentleman that runs that, and their program is really unique and cool. You can go online and learn more about it. I think that they take applications at certain times a year. But definitely, if funding is an issue for some of you, you can always ask us too. We have different resources, and our team is happy to point you in directions that have helped other families.
Absolutely.
So there was another question, Megan, about, I know you mentioned it briefly, but so here we are, let's see, March to November. Ariana, I feel like I'm not doing my math well. Is she 9 months?
Oh, 9 months. 8 months.
8 months, thank you. Sorry. Whew, I'm ahead of the game. So what does your contact with her birth mother look like today?
So our birth mother was not open to visits, but she was open to monthly communications. So when we were in the hospital, I really wanted to kind of establish that and not let her down. So I wanted to know what she wanted from us, basically. And she said, that sounds good, a monthly text, and we send videos. So we really only text on that day, on the 11th every month. I did text her on Mother's Day, but I told her in the hospital if that ever changes and she is comfortable with a visit in the future, that Brandon and I are definitely open to that. So just to let us know.
Yeah, and that's more common than people might think, to where, honestly, what we hear here at Lifetime is we get calls or emails from adoptive parents who say, well, we wish we told her we're open. She doesn't want that much contact, but we want you to know that we're available if she ever asks, and we kind of wish that we could, So because of that love and that care that you already described for her, I think that's just a natural response, is to be like, okay, we're going to honor that for you, but just so you know, we're open to more.
Yes.
Have you already sort of started talking to Ariana about her adoption story? Like, what is that like in your family? How are you going to help?
We read to her. We have quite a few books that are geared toward adoption discussions, and so we just read those already to her. I know she's a little bit young to really have that conversation. One really special thing that actually happened while we were in the hospital was our grandmother did not want any pictures, and that was really hard for me. I had wanted something to show Ariana, and so I remember jumping on a webinar on that Monday evening, and Libby had said, maybe they don't want pictures of their face, but you could try to get pictures of the birth mother holding the baby, and that actually worked. She was coming over in 15 minutes, and I remember hearing that and thinking, oh, that is such a great idea. And so our birth mother was open to that. So we have a picture of Ariana's birth mother holding her, hanging up in her room. So I'm hoping as she gets older, just little things that we can start talking about. Oh, I love looking at this picture.
How old is she in this picture?
This is last month. She just got enough hair. This was her first time we could clip a hair bow in her hair.
She's just adorable. Megan, I mean, when you think back to last November and you were still waiting to become a mom and you were going through some heavy health decisions of your own, and then now having been a mom for a great majority of this year, I mean, does it just hit you sometimes? Like, whoa.
Yes. It's still, sometimes it's just shocking, and you just have so many emotions. It's overwhelming in such a good way. Very exciting. I cannot imagine our life without her. our little angel. She's so sweet.
I mean, do you, I've heard a lot of people just talk about that they really feel that this whole journey was leading to that specific child. I mean, do you just really feel like
Oh yes,
everything you went through was about her?
definitely. Yes, and her birth mother. I mean, we just feel like they were meant to be a part of our family and our lives, and we could not have asked for anything more. She's just, yeah, she's perfect and definitely my daughter. I mean, it's amazing.
Hmm. I mean, what are you most looking forward to now that, this time last year you were maybe collecting
Oh
some
goodness.
items, like with the
I
holidays
waited.
coming?
I
Yeah.
waited until Halloween was over, but I'm definitely putting up the Christmas tree already this weekend. So excited. Christmas was one thing that was always it's just difficult. It's a hard time of the year. Like you said, the holidays are very very hard when you have that grief and you're just not finding where you know that you're meant to be. And this year it's just going to be a 180. And we're very excited to celebrate this year.
Yeah, what would you say to families? Because, I mean, you've definitely been through your share of holidays without being a mom. What would you say to someone who, say you're having girl chat or coffee time with someone and they're just saying, I can't believe I'm heading into the holidays and I'm still waiting. Do you remember what that was like? What would you say to be
Yes,
there for
I don't
someone
know
or
that they
encourage?
were. Yeah, I don't know that there were any words that would have made me feel better, but I know, I mean, you just to keep your faith and know that it will happen, and there is a baby out there that is meant specifically for you. And when that happens, you really look back and you think, wow, like I can't imagine my life with any other child. Like this was, it's just meant to be, and to keep your faith.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Trying to scroll through. Kim, are there any questions we've missed here that we need to pop in before we wrap up?
I think we did hit all the questions that people had, but if you have some more questions, usually guests are able to, answer those later. If anything pops up, you can email your coordinator and they can pass it on to Megan to answer for you. But we just appreciate all of you being with us, and Megan, thank you too for being here and being so open, about your experience and your story and all the feelings that kind of go along with that from beginning to end. And people have, made comments throughout the webinar tonight about how they have felt the same way and kind of faced the same kind of things too. So I know that your story has really comforted people tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, and we can't thank Lifetime enough. You guys are awesome, and we appreciate your support. Like just every step of our way, it made it so much easier to have that.
Oh, thank you, Megan. I just saw a really sweet comment because just for those of you to know that all of us who are on the speaker side of the webinar, it doesn't matter how often we do this, we still get nervous because we want this to touch your hearts and be meaningful to you. But also our webinar guest speakers often get a little nervous too. And I know, Megan, it was really important to you that you hoped that your story would just encourage people. And I'm seeing a lot of comments popping up now just talking about how you've given them hope. You've just helped them feel validated, inspired. So thank you for being here tonight, Megan. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
If any of you have questions or feedback after tonight's webinar, we would love to hear from you. Megan, real quick, I would love if you would tell the story here, because I'm guessing this photo that I have up, you mentioned there was a profile photo you had where it said love makes a family, and so I'm guessing you whipped this sign back out for her newborn photo?
Yes, we ripped the sign. Yes, we had a map and we had this sign, and we brought both out, and she ate both of them in our photo shoot, but we loved it. So this is the same sign that's in our puzzle piece. Yes.
Oh,
so cute.
I just love Brandon's face too. I mean,
oh, it was just so funny. He's like, she's just eating it.
So perfect. I eat the sign now. Love makes my family. I eat it. Wonderful. Well, we want to thank all of you who made time to listen to Megan's story tonight too. And you just know that we're here to help. that if you have any questions, there's no such thing as being too educated about adoption. We want to make sure that you feel prepared and that you understand what to expect with the process as much as possible. So if you have a question and you're thinking, gosh, is this a dumb question, or should I even ask this? The answer is usually yes. If it's on your mind, ask our team. If you're already working with Lifetime, you can always reach out to your personal coordinator here. But if you don't know who to talk to at Lifetime, you can always call us and just connect, or you can email or even message on social media. More and more people are touching base there too. So we are here to help. And for those of you who are actively waiting to adopt, I just want you to know that we see you and we are praying for you, and we just know that you're going to have an amazing story like Megan described tonight, and it may not happen in a hot second like theirs did, especially over a weekend. You may have more notice and time to prepare, but however it comes together, like Megan said, you're going to know that there was a baby specifically meant for you. So I hope you hang on to that promise that you've been called to on this adoption journey in your heart. So thank you again, everyone. We'll talk with you soon. And Megan, I hope you have a great evening too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Good night, everyone.